Hi, Betty.
Hi.
Are you ready for the Inquisition?
Do your worst.
To start off with, give us an idea of what it was like growing up in the South. You had 5 brothers and sisters?
Yes.
And
3 brothers and 2 sisters. I'm the oldest girl. I
grew
was
up-
born in Nashville, Tennessee, April 22nd, 1923, and I was almost born in a movie theater. My mother had labor pains when the show was over at 11 o'clock, and my father had to rush her to the hospital. And I think that's the reason I've been such a movie fan and crazy about the movies all my life, because I was almost born in a movie house.
Do you have any other famous brothers and sisters?
No, they're not famous. My brother Jimmy was rather famous throughout the South. He was into bodybuilding, and he was Mr. Tennessee, Mr. Nashville, and Mr. Old South. No, he was second as Mr. Tennessee. That was his big disappointment. And he was also a famous Golden Glove player, too. Boxer.
During the war?
No,
After?
this was before the war, when he was in his teens. But I might tell you a few things about my childhood. My mother and father should never have been married. My mother was one of 12 children, and she married the first man who would get her out of having to be shuttled back and forth from one brother and sister to another, older brothers and sisters. But my mother and father were most incompatible. My father was a womanizer of the worst sort. He never got enough sex. And they were divorced when I was 10, and my mother took care of all 6 of us. My father was always claiming how much he loved us, but he never contributed a cent to our support. We were so poor that we never got any fruit at all. Once a year in our Christmas stockings, Mama would put an orange in there, and we were so happy to receive an orange now. Mostly we lived on beans, soup beans, mush, cornmeal mush, and fried potatoes. That's all my mother could afford. This was back in the Depression days, and money was hard to come by, especially with one woman taking care of 6 hungry mouths.
And you spent some time in an orphanage?
When I was right after the divorce, the juvenile authorities thought that it would be better if Mama put the girls in an orphanage. So my 2 sisters and I were in the Protestant orphanage outside of Nashville on Franklin Pike for almost a year. We would have been there until we were 18, except that the school teacher, they had a little school there upstairs, didn't like my sister Goldie, and she spanked her with a ruler on her hands a lot, and Goldie would cry, and Goldie ran away from the place. And I saw her. I was in the recess yard at fall school. I was in the 8th grade. I saw Goldie hightailing it down the other side of the street, and I wondered where she was going. And she went home crying to Mama, and Mama went to the juvenile authorities and had these 3 old maids who ran the orphanage removed from there, and an elderly couple took over who were kind to the children.
When you got old enough, where did you end up? Back with your mother?
Yes.
What determined when they released you back into your mother's custody? Did she come and get you, or?
She came and got all of us after that happened. The juvenile authorities let us go home back to Mama's, and we were just happy as a lark.
And all you kids were together after that?
Yes, but my mother was not demonstrative toward any of us except her favorite, my brother Jack. The only one time in my whole life that my mama ever kissed me, I was a Girl Scout, and I went to Sequatchie, Tennessee to a Girl Scout camp meeting for a week. And when I came home, Mama grabbed me and hugged me and gave me a kiss on the cheek when I came in the door. I was so shocked and surprised.
She missed you. So were you very popular in grade school or high school because of your looks?
No, I studied all the time. I studied all afternoon and evening, and I got a reputation for knowing all the answers to all the questions in the class. If nobody else in class could answer anything, the teacher and the students always said Betty Page can answer it, so I had to live up to my reputation for knowing it all.
As a bookworm.
But I enjoyed studying. I liked learning. I was very happy learning. I've enjoyed learning different things all my life.
Well, when did you become aware of the fact that you were pretty?
I was not very pretty, I don't think. Like an idiot, I even plucked my eyebrows real thin, like the style was Jean Harlow and Joan Crawford were doing then. And I think I looked ridiculous doing it.
How old were you?
I was about 13 when I started doing that. Because of it, later on, when I got older, I've never had many eyebrows. I always had to pencil them a lot.
Did you start dating?
My mother would not let me date a doll in high school. She didn't even let me go to my senior prom now. Get that. I was so hurt by that I just cried for hours. For some reason, she was afraid to let me go anywhere with a boy. Just a couple of weeks before school was out, I sneaked around and went to the movies one afternoon after school with a fellow that I liked. I had a crush on one boy in my homeroom, though. He was a Greek fellow named John Callis. He didn't know I was alive, though. He was in love with another girl, Willadine Wall, but I would just wait for John Callis to come in the door so I could see him.
Did you speak to him, though?
No, he never even noticed me, and I never said a word to him, but I had a mad crush on him the whole 3 years I was in Hume Fogg High School. Years later, I met him on the street and told him about it. He said, "Betty, I never knew you even liked me."
After school, you attended college and moved around a bit before beginning your modeling career in New York. When you first started out, were you able to make a living at it right away?
My dream when I was in high school was to be valedictorian. And I studied so hard trying to be valedictorian because with it went a 4-year scholarship to Vanderbilt University. And that's what I wanted more than anything. But I was beat out of valedictorian by 1/4 of a point now, can you imagine? And I had to settle for being salutatorian. And all I got was a $100 scholarship to George Peabody College for Teachers. So I started going to Peabody, and I worked my way through the 4 years as secretary to Dr. Alfred Leland Crabb. He's a famous historical novelist about the Civil War. He wrote 3 books, Dinner at Belmont, Supper at the Maxwell House, and Breakfast at the Hermitage, that I did all the typing for and the punctuation and some ideas of mine in it. And I enjoyed that very much the whole time I worked as his secretary.
And how long did you attend Peabody?
4 years. I graduated in June with a BA in June 1944, majoring in English with emphasis on speech and dramatics. I was very active in the Peabody Players and their radio guild. I even wrote a little 15-minute detective story that was put on.
All right, when you did settle in New York, you worked first as a secretary?
Yes.
Before a model?
Yes, I worked for a lawyer and a real estate broker up on the 9th floor in the Eastern Airlines building.
And you were discovered how soon after that?
I went to Greenbush Summer Theater in Rockland County, 30 miles from Manhattan, in the summer of 1950. And after my apprenticeship was up there in September, I went into Spring Valley, New York, and worked for a fellow who was a lawyer who chased fire engines. And I was there just about a month, and with that money I saved, I went into New York. It was in October, early October, and I was walking out on the beach on Coney Island. It was a pretty cool day. I was wearing a sweater, heavy sweater, and slacks. And the beach was deserted then. It was late in the afternoon, and there was just one fellow over there with his little black trunks on doing his exercises, and he was a black man, and I was thinking what a magnificent body he had, and I sat there watching him until he put his clothes on, and he came over to me afterwards, and he said, "Have you ever done any photographic modeling?" I I said, no, I never thought of it. He said, you'd make a good pinup model, a photographer's model. He said, he gave me his card, and he said he was a policeman, a Brooklyn policeman, but he said he had a studio in Brooklyn, and photography was his #1 hobby.
And what was his name?
Jerry Tibbs was his name. A very nice fellow indeed. He said he would make up a portfolio of pictures for me to take around to the studios and to the photographers if I'd come and pose for him. So I did, and he kept his word and made me a nice portfolio up. And he was my friend all 7 years I was in New York. He'd call me up every now and then and say, how are you doing, Betty May? He would always kid me, calling me Betty May by my middle name too, because I didn't like it, and yet he always said, how are you, Betty May?
Well, what did you do with that portfolio of photos that he gave you?
I never even took them around to the photographers. I don't even know whatever happened to the portfolio.
Well,
I never made the rounds over the studios or the photographers. People just called me for jobs.
But how would people find out about you?
Just by word of mouth from one person telling another, I guess, because I never went with a portfolio around to the studios or to the photographers.
Well, then I assume that it was word of mouth that got you introduced to the Klaws, Irving and Paula.
I just don't remember exactly how it happened that I met Irving or Paula. I think it was through some of the models who posed with me for Robert Harrison's pinup magazines that were so famous back then. Wink and Flirt and Titter and Beauty Parade in particular were the most popular ones. And all the girls who worked for Robert Harrison would end up posing for Irving Klaw, and that's probably where I first heard of it, but I don't remember it very much.
Now, I've seen in a magazine some very early photographs of you before you had bangs. Doing bikinis and whatnot.
Yes, Robert Harrison's editors would claim that was my sister.
Exactly.
It was me without the bangs.
Yes, they called you Laura Kavanaugh.
Jerry Tibbs is the one who got me onto wearing bangs. He said to me when I was posing for him that first session, he said, Betty, you have a very high forehead. Have you ever thought of wearing bangs? He said, I think you'd look good in bangs. And I said, I used to wear bangs when I was a kid, but I went home and cut the bangs, and I've been wearing them ever since.
You cut them that very day?
Yeah. Just because Jerry suggested it.
Boy. So how long was it that you were working for Harrison?
Oh.
Short time?
Maybe 2 or 3 years.
Oh. And,
he later dropped those magazines, and his #1 hit magazine was Confidential, with all those stories.
Did you ever find yourself in there?
Oh, some of the stories they would make up, I was in there. I was a gypsy woman somewhere standing in front of a trailer camp one time in one of his stories. All of it made up, no reality to any of it.
Well, in the actual photo layouts that you would do for Harrison, with all the crazy costumes and the midget clowns and everything, what did you think about that at the time? Was it just nonsense and burlesque?
And no, the girls would laugh about it. The only thing I didn't like posing for Harrison's magazines was the fact that every model had to have her breasts taped. Mr. Harrison would not let you pose for him if you didn't have a lot of cleavage, and my breasts have always been wide apart and didn't have much cleavage. But taping them your breasts look terrible from a side view, and sometimes the photographers would shoot from the side views. And it was very uncomfortable. Can you imagine? You'd have to hold your breasts together with your hands while they put this big, heavy 2-inch tape all the way across it. It was very uncomfortable and no doubt bad for your breasts, too.
Well, I hope it paid well.
It didn't pay but $10 an hour.
Which leads us to the Klaws, and they paid much better.
Well, you had to work about 4 hours, though, for Irving Klaw. And I'd get about $70, but back then, $70 was quite a bit of money. That's twice as much as I would make doing secretary work all week, just for 4 hours work.
And how long was it before you were able to quit your secretary job and model full-time?
I stopped right after I met Jerry Tibbs, and he introduced me to Cash Carr and other camera club operators. I was making enough money posing for the camera clubs that I didn't have to do secretary work anymore.
So, in fact, you worked for the camera clubs first before the Klaws.
Oh, yes.
How long?
And I enjoyed the outings when we would go over in New Jersey and upstate New York to farms, and it was to get outdoors, a nice little trip up in the country. I enjoyed the outings on weekends. I didn't get but about $25 for it, but it was fun.
Fresh air.
Yeah, get outside of the city.
And you never had any problems with any of the photographers?
Never had a problem with any of those guys.
They were gentlemen.
They hardly ever talked to the models. They just looked.
And you sure they had film in their cameras?
It was said that a lot of them didn't have film, but I think they did. Seemed like they were interested in really trying to get good shots.
Well, enough of those photographs have surfaced that it seems that they all had film in their cameras.
I think so. I think a lot of it was just hearsay that the guys were just there to ogle nude models.
And do you think Cass might have introduced you to the Klaws?
No, I think it was through some of the girls who posed for Robert Harrison's magazines.
Who would that have been? Maybe June King or one of the other girls?
Probably June King. She, next to me, her pictures sold more than any others for Irving Klaw. I liked her. She was a pretty redhead. She had very beautiful breasts, a lot prettier than mine.
Did you two socialize much?
I just went to dinner with her and her husband. She was married, to a policeman.
The whole time she was modeling?
Yes, and he didn't mind her doing the fetish and bondage at all for Irving.
The first time you worked for Irving, do you recall the shoot? What kind of props and...
No, I don't remember the first time. I just know that every time you posed for Irving, you had to do at least about an hour or an hour and a half of bondage and fetish work.
So it wasn't all pinup to begin with. You immediately had to do bondage.
You had to. He's the only one I ever did bondage for during my whole modeling career. But we would laugh about it. I never thought it was anything strange. Most of the work came from requests he would get in the mail from doctors, lawyers, businessmen, men up in high society even, wanted all of these strange things. The wildest request I ever had that I had to fulfill, this guy sent a pony outfit with a hood and covered in black leather, and I had to get down on my feet and hands like a pony, and Paula put this costume over me. You couldn't even see my face, but that's what this guy wanted.
How often would the Klaws shoot at different locations? Would they go to somebody's...
They didn't go to many different locations. In fact, I just remember one outdoor outing, and that was the only time I was ever frightened doing bondage. They had me spread-eagled to 4 trees out in the woods, and ropes around my ankles and my wrists and my arms up and spread out and my legs spread, and a rope tied around my waist, and I was off the ground about 6 inches in that position, and they would, Paula and the other photographer were taking all kinds of shots for about 5 minutes, and I thought my shoulders were going to fall out of my sockets. I was in pain there. And later, Irving said that those pictures sold more than any of his pinup pictures or bondage pictures, even more than his movie star photos that he also sold.
And that wasn't acting.
No, I was uncomfortable and hurting. The only time I was ever frightened doing the bondage.
And that work, while you enjoyed it, it never became tiresome or repetitive to you?
No, it was just something I did as a part of getting paid.
Well, you always looked like you were having fun. How long did you say the average shoot would last?
4 to 5 hours, usually on Saturdays.
Oh, never during the week?
No, just on Saturdays.
And did any of your sisters, Joyce or Goldie, ever model also?
Goldie came to New York a couple of times to visit me, and she went on 2 or 3 camera club shoots with me. She wouldn't pose in any of my bikinis, though. She would wear my full-length bathing suits.
And how about Joyce?
Joyce never came to New York. She was the prettiest one of the three of us. She always had lighter hair, and she would bleach it blonde. And like my mother, who had been a hairstylist, that's the kind of work she did to support us during our childhood. She taught Lub how to Lub, we called her, even though her name was Joyce. Mama taught her how to do hair, and she would have the most beautiful hair, and just styled so lovely. And she was real pretty and had a much better figure than I did. She was the one who should have been a model or a movie star.
Well, what did your sisters think about your modeling career?
They never said a word to me about it, never commented about it, neither did my mother. Years later, I was looking for some of my things that were stored in Mama's big walk-in closet that she had covered over with a drape in the front, and Mama wasn't there at the time, and I was surprised to find a whole big stack of Robert Harrison's girly magazines and other magazines with my pictures in it and cover shots on the front. I had no idea Mama even saw any of those magazines.
Who do you suppose bought them?
She did. She worked for some time then. She was working as cashier at the Nashville Depot downtown, railroad station. And there was a big newsstand right across the way from where she worked. So I imagine she got them there.
You seem to enjoy life in New York City in the 1950s. It sounds like it was a lot of fun. Where were some of your favorite haunts? Take us through a typical night out in New York City. If you were on a date, what were some of the places you might go?
I like to go to the Roseland Ballroom with those two bands they had, a Latin band and American orchestra. And I used to be very fond of mamboing, samboing, and cha-cha, and rumba too.
Any particular bands you remember? Name bands?
No, I don't remember any in particular. A lot of them weren't name bands.
Just house
But it
bands?
was a great big beautiful ballroom with those flashing colored lights up in the ceiling.
What was the location of that club?
It was on Broadway, up around 50th Street.
Mm-hmm. What about restaurants? You have any favorite places?
I used to like to go to Sardis for their delicious cream. What kind of cheesecake is it? Cheesecake, just plain cheesecake.
Did you ever go to the Russian Tea Room or any of those other fancy places?
No. I was dating, this fellow from Peru, from South America, and he took me to what looked like a grotto with all kinds of plants in it and caves back in there, over there between 8th Avenue and Broadway, in the 40s somewhere. I never knew it was there. Most interesting place that I've ate in my life. Didn't even look like a restaurant inside.
Did they have a band also?
No.
You don't remember the name of the place?
And I used to love to go to that little place that all actors go to get hot pastrami and hot corned beef sandwiches. They would pile the pastrami and the corned beef on 4 inches high.
What was the name of the place?
I can't remember. Just a little hole in the wall, a little deli.
Right off of?
Off Broadway,
Mm-hmm.
in the theater district.
Yeah, it's probably still there.
Around 44th Street, I think. I think it was on 44th.
How about movie houses? Where would you tend to go to see movies?
I never paid the high prices, except at Radio City Music Hall, which was just 4 blocks from my apartment. I was so fond of that most beautiful theater, I think, in the world. And with the ice skaters and ballet dancers and all of those wonderful Rockettes all doing those high kicks all the way across the stage. But I would frequent the double feature houses on 42nd Street. Mm-hmm. They were very inexpensive, and many times I would go from 8 o'clock at night until they closed at 4 in the morning. Just go from one theater from one side of the street to the other between Broadway and 8th Avenue.
And
with all the good old movies.
Who would you take with you?
Nobody. I'd go by myself, wearing my jeans and a shirt or a jacket and a scarf on my head and no makeup. Nobody ever recognized me then. Nobody ever bothered me in those days. And I would walk from 42nd Street and 8th Avenue all the way up to my apartment on West 46th between 5th and 6th at 4 in the morning Nobody ever accosted me or anything. A lot of people would be out walking around in New York back in those days, all night long. I would be afraid to even go in the daytime now if I were down around 42nd Street.
Yeah. So you were a solo moviegoer.
I went by myself most of the time. When I was dating Marvin Green, the actor, for 3 years, he and I went to the movies quite often. But usually I would go by myself.
Not with any of the other girls?
No, I never went to a movie with any model or anyone else, any other woman in New York. I was either with a man or by myself. I've been that way most of my life, I've never been one for girlfriends except my roommate in college.
I think we talked about how long the average shoot was for Klaw.
Yeah.
Say the average day.
4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
On Saturdays.
And you were expected to be on time?
He knew I was usually about an hour late. He never said anything to me about it.
He would plan for it.
I didn't do it deliberately. I would be getting myself ready to look good.
And you were paid a little more than the other models?
No, I was never paid any more than the others. We all got around $70, $75 to $80 every time, which was a good little.
But did you say that Paula would give you a tip, a little extra?
She never gave me anything extra.
Yeah?
No, I was treated just like all the other girls.
Well, I don't know about that. You were known as their good luck charm.
I know. They said my pictures sold more than the other models, but they never treated me any differently financially or otherwise.
Now, you said that you made all your costumes.
Yes.
With few exceptions, some being Frederick's outfits that you had.
Yes, I ordered from Hollywood a couple of lingerie outfits from Frederick's of Hollywood. And other than that, and Bunny Yeager's too thin nylon negligees, I made all my other costumes. I enjoyed making them.
And you started making two-piece bathing suits before they were really sold in the stores.
Yes, I had made several that I would wear to the beach or to a swimming pool.
But did you make them specifically to wear out, or did you make them with the idea that you'd use them in a shoot?
No, I made them before I ever started modeling, the two-piece suits. They were just for swimming and sunbathing.
Okay. Now, I imagine some of the outfits, the more outlandish stuff, were always supplied by Paula and Irving. The corsets and the upper gloves.
I didn't have anything like that. I did buy long gloves and those net stockings up to your waist and black stockings. Mm-hmm. I bought all those things.
But most of the leather outfits and things
all of that was Irving Klaws.
And especially the really tall skyscraper heels.
I would never wear anything like that. There was only that one pair that Irving had that I could wear, and those heels were wider than the others.
How tall were those heels on that pair of shoes?
6 inches, some of them were. 4 to 6 inches. And all I could do was stand up in them, except that one pair that he kept for me only. It fitted me just fine. I could wiggle around and move around and kick around in those.
Well, someone said that you were the only model who could walk and dance in those high heels.
Then not those regular ones with the thin heels. All I could do was stand up. And even then I was uncomfortable. They would hurt me.
I'll bet you were glad to get it over with.
Yeah, it's just too high now. Absurdly high. Why men like those things that high, I don't know.
I think it extends and lengthens the leg. It's a visual thing that it makes it look much longer than the leg actually is.
My legs were long enough.
Wow. I'm not going to argue
that.
Can you tell us what became of all your costumes and mementos and things of that time?
When I left New York in December, just before Christmas, 1957, I had all my belongings stored in a warehouse in New Jersey. I had really intended coming back to New York maybe in several months. I don't know if I was going to model again or not. I hadn't thought that far ahead. But when I was in Key West and started up with my old boyfriend again, Armin Walterson, we were playing volleyball on the beach, and one of the guys fell on my back And I ended up having an acute sprain of the left joint of the sacroiliac and had to be in a wheelchair for 4 months, during which time I had to pay my rent and food and all other expenses, including the hospital bills and the doctor bills. And I went through all the money I had saved, and I couldn't afford to pay for the storage bill at that warehouse in New Jersey, and I lost everything, including my scrapbook that I had started of my pictures and magazine and newspaper articles, and all my keepsakes, my school albums, annuals, and all my pictures that I had taken of family and friends and of myself over the years. I lost everything.
And all your costumes.
And all my costumes.
But you didn't think to call the storage people and ask them, couldn't they please hold them for you?
No, they won't do that. You've got to pay the bill every month.
I'm surprised you didn't call Jerry Tibbs and say, hey, I need a favor. Go over and get that stuff.
No, I didn't do that. I just lost them all.
Yeah, that's terrible. Oh, you've said from time to time that Irving would have you autograph photos for particular customers. Do you remember anything in particular about autographs?
No, he would just have some of them, mostly bondage or fetish with the high heels and the whip. A lot of men, at least back in the 50s, like to see the models cracking a whip in a picture. I don't know why.
And he would have you sign?
Yes, I'd sign them.
Mm-hmm. Now, did he say if these were preferred customers or just anybody that wanted an autograph?
A lot of them were doctors, lawyers, businessmen.
So they were professional people?
Yes.
Is that, do you think, the core of his audience?
Most of his bondage pictures, the orders for them came from individuals through the mail and letters.
And they were all professional, well-to-do people?
Yes, most of them.
Now, are these the same type of people, doctors and lawyers and types, that would suggest scenarios for you guys to do and send in outfits or bondage equipment to use? Didn't you say that sometimes they'd bring in things and...
Yeah, sometimes they'd bring them in like that pony outfit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of leather.
Mm-hmm.
Bras and leather panties. I don't know why men go in for the models wearing leather. It's not very attractive.
Well, maybe it had something to do with the attitude of the times, and it was sort of a forbidden aspect to a woman's character that just was sort of not considered back then. Did you ever sign any autographs for celebrities? Or local officials?
No, they never asked me to do that.
You never signed one for the mayor, huh?
Oh, no. Goodness, no. He would have put me in the brig.
Did Irving ever ask any other models to sign photos either?
I don't think so. I never saw any of them signing any photos.
So it was basically you that was getting the requests.
Yes.
Now, you made some radio appearances in New York City with Irving. Do you recall the programs that you were on?
No, I don't even remember being on the radio with Irving.
I imagine it was to publicize the films.
Maybe so, maybe that. No, that has escaped me and slipped my mind.
And you'd also, at the time, you'd done a couple of plays off-Broadway.
Yes.
Do you remember the titles and what theaters?
I don't remember the titles or the names of the theaters down in the village. I remember I played the lead. I played a Mexican girl who was in love with this fella who would sing outside my window. And he had this guy who played the lead, had a beautiful operatic voice. He even looked a little like Mario Lanza and sang like him. And I liked to hear him sing. But his wife was so jealous of me during the rehearsals. He liked me. I could tell he liked me, the look in his eyes and his attitude around me. But she would sit there right on the front row every rehearsal and watch us like hawks all the way through it. She thought something was going on between us, but there wasn't.
Now, you did occasionally rehearse in your apartment.
Yes. All he did was give me a little kiss on the forehead the last time I saw him, the last night of the play.
And how long did the play run?
It was only a couple of weeks. They're never long off Broadway.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were once admonished by your acting coach, Herbert Berghoff. Do you remember what it was for?
He said, point blank, he looked right at me as he was sitting at his desk, and he said, Betty, you talk too much.
And what was that in reference to?
A fellow who was an agent and manager of up-and-coming stars was interested in signing me as one of his clients.
What year was this?
This was around 1955, I guess, 55 or 6. But I told him my age, my real age, which no one knew. The magazines always said I was 22 years old. For years they claimed that, and I never refuted it, never said anything. Let them put whatever age they wanted to in there. And nobody knew my age, but like a fool, I told him how old I was. By then I was over 30, around 30. And then I also told him something in my private life that was never really known. When I was a child, about my father, we were traveling around in Oklahoma, I think it was then. I was about 5 years old. And it was during the Depression years, and Daddy couldn't get a job, and he couldn't pay the rent. And the landlady put us out on the street with all our belongings and everything. And we had nowhere to go. And he had no money, practically. So he went down the street and went and opened up the car door of the first car he could find and brought it home. And we all piled in it with our belongings. And he took off to his grandmother's in Nashville. 2 days after we got there, here came the sheriffs. He had stolen a deputy sheriff's car, and he was put in Atlanta State Penitentiary for 2 years. I even told the man that. I don't know why I did. I just had a big blabber mouth, that's all. I thought it might come out sometime in publicity and that he ought to know it. But I should have shut up, and Mr. Berghoff says, Betty, you talk too much, because nothing happened anymore with an agency contract.
So you think that cost
He
you?
just dropped me flat when I told him that and how old I was.
Well, wasn't he also sort of romancing you at the same time? Or was it somebody else?
No. Do you know that he tried to get me to marry him because he was a homosexual, and he wanted a front. He was getting up there as a manager and a producer of plays, and he wanted people to think he was normal and not gay. And he even took me to a nice apartment near his up on Central Park West and showed me the apartment, and he said, Betty, you can live here, and I'll give you expense money and everything you want if you'll just marry me. I told him, I said, no, I wouldn't want to do that now because I believe in marriage and having a regular sex life. But one time he was up at my apartment, and we started smooching. This was before I knew he was gay. We started smooching a little, and he got very excited. And then he started crying, tears coming out his eyes. I said, what's the matter? He said, Betty, you're the first woman who has ever turned me on sexually. And he was so just very excited and pleased because of it.
New discovery for him.
Yeah, and he told me he was a homosexual then.
But you had no dealings with him after you told him your sordid tale?
No, I never saw him again. You know, he produced a very well-known off-Broadway show, Old Calcutta, that created a big stir because it was the first theatrical production in which there was nudity. I understand one or two of the actors actually threw open their bathrobes and naked as a jaybird underneath. So it got quite a stink because of that. Notoriety, you'd call it.
Yeah, I think it ran for 14 years.
It even went all over the country.
Now, you studied with Berghoff, And at the same time you were taking classes with him, you were also approached, or Berghoff suggested that you go in and read for a part in Little Abner?
Yes. I started taking acting classes. I don't know why that late in life. I should have done it 10 or 12 years earlier if I really wanted to do any acting. But I just wanted to prove to myself if I could act. And he was teaching the Stanislavski method of acting, where you use things in your life in order to get a reality. And the best thing I ever did was with Robert Cupp. He was one of the students too in the acting classes on Monday nights. We did The Dark Lady of the Sonnets, in which he played William Shakespeare, and I was a lady-in-waiting to Queen Elizabeth. And he was having a love affair with Queen Elizabeth. And he dropped her and started in with me. And Queen Elizabeth found out about it, that her lady-in-waiting was taking her boyfriend away. And she called to me up in no uncertain terms and was threatening to cut my head off. And I was wondering how I could get such a reality to make that scene real. And then I hit on something. I thought that the Lord Jesus would cut my head off because of all my sins. And the thing came out, really worked, and Mr. Berghoff was so excited afterwards. He said, "Betty, what did you use to get the reality?" And when I told him, the whole class, I had Mr. Berghoff, just sat silent for a couple of minutes.
Probably the first time they'd ever heard that.
No, Mr. Berghoff wanted me to try out for the part of Moonbeam McSwine, the one who has the little pet pig she carried all the time, in Little Abner. It was coming up on Broadway. But I didn't do it. I never tried out for any theatrical production at all. I don't know why.
So you never even went by?
I didn't even go by for an audition.
Well, you would have had it hands down.
Julie Newmar, he got the part.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very good in it, a beautiful body.
Do you remember any other character parts you played when doing acting exercises, like Blanche Dubois or anything like that?
One that I was very proud of was from Bus Stop, that Marilyn Monroe made such a hit movie of, with Don Murphy. And that scene on the bus, all I had for decoration were 2 chairs side by side up there on the stage in front of the audience in the class. And that scene where she's talking about her past life and she's talking to a stranger, I did that as a monologue. And Mr. Berghoff liked it very much, and I did too. I thought it was the best thing I ever did because I never tried to do much comedy. But more than that one, I thought I did a good job on Sadie Tompkins. Rita Hayworth played it in a movie.
Sadie Thompson.
Sadie Thompson, that's right. Where she was a prostitute over in the Orient, in the Philippines. And I enjoyed playing that. And, the priest, she got him to have sex with her, and he ended up killing himself because of what he had done with her.
Now, did you attend many Broadway shows, with other fellow actors?
No, I had one older friend. He was also an amateur photographer that I had posed for back in 1951. Jim Combs, his name was. He had a business of making secret aircraft parts. He didn't talk much about his business. He had several men who worked under him, and he traveled all over the country. He would come into New York frequently, several times a year, and he would always take me to the best Broadway shows, musicals. My favorite was Having a Wonderful Time. I never saw anything like that on the stage. They had a big swimming pool built right up there on the stage now with real water in it and everything.
And who played in that one?
No big-name actors, but it was quite a hit on Broadway, Having a Wonderful Time.
Now, you were a fan, you said, of Brando and Dean. Did you ever have occasion to see them on stage?
No, I never saw either one of them. I met Rory Calhoun in person and several others. I'll tell you a little incident with him. He was married to Lita Barron, a dancer. And I had dated an agent who knew Roy Calhoun, and he was in New York staying at the Waldorf Astoria with his wife. And we were going, he was playing in Sundown, his latest movie, over at a theater in Newark, New Jersey, across the bridge. And he was doing singing and rope tricks. He was very good with the rope tricks after the show to publicize the movie. So we went over there to the movie, and then we were going nightclubbing that night. And she loaned me her fur stole, a mink stole. She was very nice to me. I liked her. He sat right by me, and she sat on the other side of him. And he held my hand the whole time during the movie. I didn't do anything, just let it sit there, and I didn't know what to do. And then after 2 or 3 days later, he called me from his room in the Waldorf Astoria, and he wanted me to come over there. And I said, "Is your wife there?" He said, "No, she's out shopping." And I said, "She was very nice to me, Mr. Calhoun." And I said, "I don't want to do anything that would make her unhappy." So he just said goodbye. He said, "If you ever come to Hollywood, come out to my ranch, and I'll show you around."
Now, you said you also one night found yourself in a taxi cab with Sammy Davis Jr.?
Yes.
What was that about?
I was auditioning as one of the dancers. This was in the very beginning of my 7-year stay in New York. And I was auditioning to be one of the Copacabana girls. But they said I wasn't tall enough. They had all big tall girls, about 6 feet tall, dancing at the Copacabana. Then it was one of the best known nightclubs in New York in those days. Maybe still is, for all I know. And Sammy Davis Jr. was the headliner there. I don't know how it came about that I was in the taxi with him, and he was driving, and they were taking me home. But he didn't approach me. I was told that he went in for white women. But he didn't make any passes at me or anything. We talked about the movies and everything, and what a good singer he was, I was telling him.
Didn't offer you a part.
No. I still like to hear him sing Candyman.
Now, you also, one of the films that you were in was Varieties, which you did with Lily St. Cyr. Now, how was that shot? Was it on different days that you two shot?
I never met Lily St. Cyr. She had a little bench, a little padded blue bench, and she did a lot of posing and contortions on the bench and around the bench, and it was very interesting. I didn't get to meet her.
But you saw her nightclub act.
Yes.
Yeah.
I went over to Minsky's. She was starring in Minsky's in New Jersey. And it was very fascinating. She was quite a dancer. She was an accomplished dancer. No other striptease artist like her. And she had this thin, see-through curtain covering the stage between the audience and the stage. And she was nude behind this see-through curtain. And it was very effective. It was beautiful with good, pretty music playing. I enjoyed her show.
And in Teaserama, you do a funny scene with Tempest Storm. Now, can you describe the scenario between the two of you?
I don't remember anything funny. I was playing her maid, her French maid, and I was dressing her. But I don't remember much in it. The only thing I liked about it is I introduced every one of the acts in my little costumes, and my bikinis and other little costumes I had made. And when I saw the film later, I liked the way I looked introducing the acts.
Mm-hmm. Now, was that all Irving's idea, or was that yours?
I think that was my idea.
Mm-hmm. And in Stripperama, you did a sketch with two comedians. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you appear as their dream girl or something?
I don't even remember much of what we said. It wasn't funny at all, the little skits. I didn't think. I thought they were terrible, in other words. But I didn't say that.
Do you remember roughly your lines? You
No.
said something that I'm your dream girl, and what did you say?
I don't remember now. It's been so long ago. I just remember thinking they weren't funny at all, the skits.
Regarding Bunny Yeager and working with her, did she contact you, or did you meet her while you were staying in Florida? How did that happen?
No, I think I first heard of Bunny through Herb Raw, a well-known columnist in the Miami Herald. He called me up and asked me if I would like to pose for Bunny Yeager. I had never heard of Bunny at that time. She was just starting out as a photographer. You know, she had been a rather well-known pinup model in the Miami area. And she was just getting her foot in the door as a pinup photographer.
Now, when you were working with Bunny, those were really the first shoots that you had done where you knew that the photos being taken were going to be reproduced as nude layouts in men's magazines. And before that, pretty much
I didn't know where she was going to sell them. We would go out on the beaches, not the public beach in Miami Beach, but over across the bridge over the Rickenbacker Causeway, there were little beaches all along there with the mango trees on one side and the water on the other. And we'd go out there about 7 o'clock in the morning before anybody came on the beaches and do our shooting then.
So it was always early?
Yes, it was always early, before the crowds came.
But I'd say probably half of the shoots that she did with you, you were nude, or at least partially nude. And did that at the time seem more daring to you than the previous modeling you'd done? Because most of the stuff you'd done up to that point was all costume stuff.
Yes. No, because she was a woman, I felt more comfortable posing in the nude for Bunny.
But you didn't feel like there'd be any repercussions from doing full nudes at that time?
No, I was very happy romping on the beach and swinging on the trees, on the mango limbs, and playing in the water. The only problem, in the early morning, all the beach areas were full of crabs. Those little sidewinders looking at you with the big eyes. And I was always afraid one was going to jump on me. Or I was going to step on him and he'd claw me.
Never happened, though.
No.
I would think they were more afraid of you. You're a lot bigger than they were. Now, was that the first time that you had dressed up as a jungle girl, or had you done it previously for Paula? Or was Bunny's shoot the first time you'd worn that kind of a getup?
I had a little skimpy leopard-like design, a little bikini. It wasn't very well made. On some of those bondage shots, especially that one where I was spread eagle to the trees with my feet off the ground, the one in which my arms were hurting me.
Now, did you make that outfit, the two-piece?
Yes.
And
But I was very fond of my one-piece outfit that I made with the scallops and the high bottoms that I wore at Little Africa when we photographed the cheetahs. I was dressed just like a cheetah.
Well, everybody has tried to duplicate that outfit since, you know. And I suppose that went the way of all the rest of your costumes?
Yes. I would like to have kept that. I was very proud of that design.
Yeah, it should have been mass-produced and sold as a swimsuit.
There wasn't much to the bottom of it, but maybe that was the most alluring part of it.
Kind of like Tarzan's outfit. So, you shot with her a few times before the Playboy centerfold was
I
shot?
didn't even know she was sending those to Playboy. Somebody showed me the copy of it in January 1955. Miss January. I didn't even know she was selling them.
Was that a Christmas shot of you in the little Santa's hat with the Christmas ornament? Was that originally intended for maybe a postcard or something?
I don't know. Whenever I would pose for her, she never told me what she was going to do with them. She just said she was going to try to sell them, that's all.
Now, when was the last time you worked for her? Do you remember what year?
I think I worked for her with, what's that most famous model in Miami who
Maria
committed
Stinger?
suicide? Maria Stinger. Maria and I did some posing for Bunny a little bit in early 1958 after I left New York, and that was the last.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also, there were a couple of Hollywood producers, independent producers, nobody ever heard of them, who were going to do a movie, just a B picture, and with younger models, and I was to be like a mother superior over these younger models. And nothing ever came of it. Bunny entertained them with big steak dinners a couple of times. and yet...
And you came over too?
We never heard anything about the picture.
You don't remember what it was supposed to be called or anything?
No, we never did anything in it.
Do you suppose that Kefauver's hearings contributed to your exit from the modeling world at all?
I think it had something to do with it. I was just so disappointed, especially with what they did to Irving Klaw, trying to make out like he was a seller of pornography.
Was Movie Star News ever raided by the police?
Not that I know of. They did confiscate a lot of the bondage pictures, Paula said. They took the negatives. She saved some of them, she told me, but they grabbed a whole lot of stuff they had there.
And who would they have been? Kefauver's people or the FBI or the police?
Kefauver's henchmen, he had 4 or 5 of them.
And they just walked in and said, "We're taking this stuff"?
Apparently so. And tried to get me in the worst way to testify in court against Irving. And that man was so meticulous and keeping to the post office code that he wouldn't let not a little teeny nipple show through the bras, or not even a shadow of pubic hair or anything like that. Sometimes I just wear 2 pair of panties in order to prevent it, if the panties were on the thin side.
And that was something he would insist on?
Yes, and he never didn't even do any nudes. And certainly nothing you would call pornographic, unless they're calling bondage pornography, and that's ridiculous.
Well, I think they were looking at it as sort of deviant behavior. I think that was the whole point.
I say every man to himself if you're not hurting anyone. If they want to go in for the bondage, let them, as long as nobody's getting hurt.
To change the subject, in the 30 years since, had you ever seen any kind of evidence, say at a newsstand or at a bookstore, that your photos were still being reprinted in magazines?
I never looked through the magazines after I left New York. I don't know what of mine was still being printed, published.
Because they were still carrying little ads in the back of Frolic and some of the other magazines of send away for Betty Page photos.
Yes.
All through the 1960s. I didn't know if you were aware of that or not.
No.
So you really weren't aware through the 60s or the 70s that there was any sort of attention still being given to you?
No, it was all Greek to me when I first heard of it. I had no idea they were still interested in my pictures.
And do you remember the first time you were aware of that? Do you remember roughly when that was?
I think you told me about it.
No. I came along much later.
I don't remember.
Well, you said you'd seen a piece on Entertainment Tonight? Around
You mean I was on Entertainment Tonight 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
Do you recall your reaction when you saw it?
No, I was just very pleased and surprised.
You weren't tempted to call him up and say, "Hey, I'm here"?
No.
Let's see. Well, in retrospect, how do you feel about your career then, looking back at it now? Do you feel like you accomplished anything special because of the way you're regarded nowadays?
No, I never tried to do anything original.
Well,
I just did what I was asked to do when Irving Klaw wanted me to do the bondage and the fetish. I just did it as a part of my job in order to get paid.
But knowing what an effect that your image has had over everybody that's seen it since, you don't attach any sort of special meaning to anything that you did?
Nothing at all. The fact that claiming I'm an innovator and started a sexual revolution. I don't know where they get that. I never did anything sexual in my posing.
Well, it was, I'm sure, implied.
I was just trying to think of some different poses.
Well, and yeah, but the thing that you did that a lot of models didn't do was you emoted. You put a lot into it emotionally. The person looking at your photographs saw in your face whatever the scenario was that you were in.
Sometimes I would imagine that the camera was my boyfriend that I was trying to entice.
Mm-hmm.
I would often think of that.
Yeah, because it came through. It came across very clearly that you were in a particular mood. Now, since your biography's been published now, the big book, and you've got a possible documentary in the works,
Yeah.
and all the calendars and the little comic books and things, and now this CD-ROM, how do you feel about the focus that's been given to your career year after year after year? Do you think it's ever going to run dry, or do you think it's just going to go on indefinitely?
I think it's already starting to taper off now. It's been going on a long time. And I'll never get over all of the interest in me after all these years. That's just something I don't understand at all.
But do you have any sort of a sense that your image of you in your prime is just one of those bits of American culture that's fixed in the minds of people that saw it, and it really is just going to always be a part of our culture, however small?
Well, I hope it continues. Anyhow, it's very flattering indeed.
I think it's going to be around for a long time. You're going to have to put up with it. So, I think that does it, and we thank you very much, Betty. And I know all your fans all over the world will wish you the very best and good health and a long, happy life.
Well, I wish the same to every one of my fans, and I'm so thankful that you like my pictures and that you care as much as you do about me. And I wish you all the best, every one of you.